Got it.
Hutch, how are you?
I'm doing well. Just enjoying the, summer best I can.
Living life, recruiting like crazy, golfing your face off. It sounds like living your best life.
Well, it is the best time of the year when you can enjoy summer in Michigan. It's the greatest season of all, and taking time to do the things you like to do. So I'm trying to enjoy that.
Good for you. Good for you. I try to say the same thing, but my dog's insane. That's a little hindrance to the good life.
Yeah. I lost you here on my iPad is falling off. I don't know if it's gonna work. I didn't bring my computer home. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
We're great. We're great. All right. I need to get into why coaching for you. Like, why did you want to coach? I don't even know how many years you've been coaching, but it's a lot of years. Like, what brought you to that? Because where you've come is insane.
Well, I just finished my 40th year at Michigan, my 38th as a head coach. And before that, I coached for a year at Michigan State. I was like the student assistant. My 5th year, I had to finish school. I went from there to Indiana as a grad student and a grad assistant for a year. And then I went to Ferris State College for a year. I was the interim head coach. The head coach was pregnant and had her baby in March. And the SWA was a friend of mine from college who I played basketball with. And she called me up, said, Hutchie, you need a job. I said, I do need a job. And she brought me up there to Ferris, which is in a couple hours north of Lansing. It's now a Division II school. She offered me, I can't remember if I made $500 or $1,000. I think I made $500 for a semester. And she took me over to the house that she rented and she showed me the living room and said, here, you can sleep here. And I slept on the living room floor for 6 months. Well, that was my job. And we did really well. We made it almost all the way to the national finals. And I had a really good team. I mean, they were loaded. They had some D1 level players, I can tell you that. And all right, this isn't gonna. I have a new case, and the case is not fitting on my thing.
All good. Keeps it fun.
My why was pretty simple. As well, I know we'll discuss Title IX, and I grew up as a tomboy that played every sport, but I didn't get to play organized sport in general. We didn't have it. I ended up being a cheerleader for my brothers who played organized sports, and I used to go to their games. And I played out in the parking lot and in the sand lot, and we played basketball and hockey in the winter, and I played with all the boys. But I got to be in junior high and high school, and there was nothing for us to do. So we had kind of like girls' activities, which were like stay after school and get to play. And sometimes we would go to, I'm just gonna hold this. Sometimes we would go across town and play the other teams in Lansing. And, basketball was my first love. And our basketball coach was Ann Johnson. And Ann is my first role model mentor. And she is the reason why I wanted to be a coach, because the impact she had on me was ginormous. And she treated me like, you want to be an athlete, then you need to do better. You need better in school. She pushed me. She believed in me. And she was the person I wanted to be to young women. And then I started playing summer softball with a very competitive women's team. We didn't have youth softball. We didn't have 12 and under, 14 and under, 16 under. We had women's ball. It was travel ball. It was literally considered semi-professional. I don't know why. We got our expenses paid for. But we traveled the country, played 80 games a summer. And the Lansing Laurels, I was 16 when I got on the team. And it was with women that were in their 20s, women's in their 30s. And the head coach and the manager was Kay Purvis, who when I first met her was 49 years old, and she was still catching.
Wow.
And I was playing for a number of years with them. And Kay was my next role model mentor, who again used to take me by the ears and, make me a better player, but really made me a better person, made me accountable, made me understand how athletics fits into the big picture of life. And those two women, I was fortunate I had women role models who impacted me greatly. And then I got a chance to go to college, and by then we did have sports for women. We weren't totally varsity, but in a transition period before the NCAA adopted us in 1982. But man, I got to play basketball, wear a uniform, travel the country, although we traveled in cars. Our coaches used to drive us in cars. Meanwhile, the boys had buses and planes and so forth. But we were excited because we were varsity athletes and represented our school, which my school was not Michigan, but it was another school in Michigan. And, I played softball. In my freshman year, we were the AIW, which was the women's version of the NCAA. We won the national championship. We bused to Omaha, Dill Field, and we played in the national championships. We were 5-0. Our pitcher was Gloria Bexford, the greatest Spartan ever to this day. And we won the whole thing. And that national championship meant every bit as much to me as the one we won over here in 2005. And, that was what we had available to us. And so I knew at that point I wanted to stay in college. And you talk about being in college for a while, like your sister. I've been in college my whole life. I mean, I went to college at the age of 18 and I have never left college, not for 1 minute. So my mom used to tease me, when are you going to get a real job? And I said, well, why would you ever leave college, Mom? So I'm a advocate that being in college is and should be the greatest experience of your life. And it's been for me, and it's been for many of the women who I hope who come here and enjoy the opportunities that they have.
That's amazing. I will say college were some of the best years of my life too, for all the reasons. Find your independence, you're challenged like crazy. I remember leaving college saying, how the HE double hockey sticks did I just do that? Like, how am I alive? Because of how tough the training was, how tough it was to play so many games in a year. And, the first week of weights, not being able to walk upstairs, like, why do I do this to myself? Right. But it's for the love of the game. And you have stuck around for so many of athletes who have been look up to you and are now coaching. It's got to be a cool feeling when you see your own kids go off and coach.
Oh, it's the highlight of my, I call it the reward of being a coach is your alumni. You watch help them grow up. You go through a lot of growing pains with them. It's not all roses. And then you see them as adults and what they're doing in their life, whether they're mothers and their children and their careers. And many of them have chosen to go into coaching and coach at the college level, been very successful. And, I beam with pride like a mom. But I think those are the same kids that help make me, the successful coach that we've been able to be here at Michigan, because these are the kids. And watching them grow into young women and now strong, powerful women is really what we do for a living. I've said it all along. We are here to empower and to grow up young girls who have great potential and help them reach their potential and reach their, so many of them have. So it does make me, it's the reward of what we do.
This is why I knew you'd be the perfect guest, because we have a very similar vision in different fields. But I actually had one of your alumni. I asked this alumni, if you could ask Hutch any question, what would it be? And it has a lot to do with what you just said. And she asked, what is the secret to empowering a group that you're a leader of? It's hard, but Hutch is so good at it.
Well, it's hard to empower them. The thing
What's
is,
the secret?
Because I don't empower them. I don't give you power. I can't. If I could hand it to you in a pill, that would be great. Let's do that. We create the heart. We hold them to standards that they don't realize they have in them. That is exactly. Oh, for God's sake! Sorry, you're getting phone. Doing the hard is what makes you. That's the name of the game. And we create situations for them where, this isn't about you. This is about Michigan. And all the standards that we ask you to meet are to help make Michigan great. And I believe that's the concept of a team, that you are here to make something great. When you go work in a company, in an organization, whatever you do in your life, you are paid to make that organization great in whatever the endeavors are, whether it's making lots of money for the company, buying businesses, I don't know what they do in corporations really, but part of something. And when they learn those qualities, you have to go through the experiences. You don't just know them. How could you know them if you never came from that? I mean, if you grew up in a family, most people have a family, but I grew up with 6 kids in our family. And I always say my mom created the original gender equity because there were 3 boys and 3 girls. And she treated us all like we were her favorite. She gave us all the same number of Christmas presents. And she treated us all the same, and I really believe that the empowerment comes with doing the hard, and we're here to push you through it and help you realize what you can really accomplish. And we've seen kids go from never playing to starting and becoming all Big Ten, all American, and watching them, it's just like a blossom, a boom, and they realize, and then they can look back and say, wow, this is how it happened. This is what I've done. And watching my most recent graduates going out into the working world. And, I said, I can't wait for you to call me and tell me your experiences because you're so well prepared. I had one of my graduates called me. She had just, she'd taken the bar, went to law school, and she called me. She said, I just litigated my first case. I said, how'd it go? Well, she said, going in front of the judge, I said, it was nothing like walking into your office when you called me in. I just had to laugh. But doing the hard is what makes you. Convincing kids to do the hard is the hard part.
That's so amazing. And I know through, my own family's experience, Christina knew there was another level in her. And so a big reason why she chose to transfer, and she learned so much at her previous school, but she knew that she'd be able to get more out of herself by playing under you. And I know that was a big thing for her. So I just love that that's like a foundation. Now, how do you manage athletes? Because every athlete's different. Every athlete has different needs. They react differently to how you coach. And I know you want to coach everybody the same, but how do you deal with athletes who are much different than each other?
Well, it is it's a process, for coaches. The most important thing is getting to know them, and it takes a while. Either freshman year we're just trying to get them all on board with this is how things run. They're like little puppies, and you got to corral them in their little like box. And but as you know them, you hopefully create relationships with all the kids, and I think it's natural. I certainly have better relationships with some of my players than others. A lot of it is, I definitely do well with kids who are outgoing and want to have a relationship. And I don't do as well with kids who, don't do adults, So, but recognizing that and what can we do to help them? But also there's a standard line that we still have to create for everybody. That's how you treat everybody the same. You all have to meet the same standards. And so I think the best thing we do is when we get to chances to work with, we like to bring them in to hit early and on their own and in small groups, because it's the best chance to visit with them and be alone with them and not have other distractions of the whole team and running the whole practice. But really getting to know them, knowing their families, knowing their dogs. I think those are important things, knowing their significant others. I mean, that's important to me. I like to, every now and then I meet a new significant other. I'm like, hey, why don't you bring that person into my office and we should visit, So it's exciting. And I've had a few kids laugh about it, but it's all good. You gotta, they're people. We're all people. The coaches are people too. So it's a people business.
Yeah. And frankly, I think even the travel ball world and youth athletes, I think the people business is kind of like swaying away from the game, which is really bothering me because I work with a lot of youth athletes. So what type of questions, I mean, you talked a little bit about like getting to know their parents and their dogs, but like, what other questions are you asking your kids to make sure they're people first? Like, what are the things that, coaches that are looking to build relationships with their players should do maybe a bit more of?
Well, and I think I should do a bit more of it really. But school, like they're immersed in their school. It's a very challenging environment for them. And you need to stay in touch with that. And talk to them about what they do today. And I have one of my freshmen this year, I found out was a foodie, big time foodie. And I'd ask her almost every day if I'd see her right before practice, what'd you have for lunch today? And she'd show me a picture, and she started taking pictures about, and she'd eat like 4 entrees, she could put it away. And, just figure out what they're about. And, a lot of kids they get homesick. You ask about their families and try to engage them. The key is to engage them and try to know what their interests are. And I like to mill downstairs through the training room area and where they come in before practice, so I can visit with them in that setting, which is less of a power setting than when I say, okay, come up to my office and chat. I don't like to start meetings as much. I have student athletes from 10, 20 years ago who still reminisce. And when I used to call them from the office line, and, the office phone number, everybody, and they're like, I'm just calling. And usually I was calling, come on in, I wanted to talk about something. Occasionally it was because they needed to maybe straighten up. But in general, I like to mingle around and ask about their little sister or just the things that I know are going on in their life. And then I often am dumbfounded there are things going on I didn't know about. I'm like, how do we miss that? And as a coach, we definitely have been spread really thin with all the things that we do. All of the technology is just so great to its point, but it can consume you and you're too caught up in their technology versus coaching with just your feel. And, those are areas that continually we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, the game is evolving every 5 seconds. Like there's always some new tool or technology that's growing it. But one thing that I have admired through you, just getting to know you in this past year, is simply, how much you are still willing to learn. And I feel like that's why your program has had continued success, was because you are still asking questions. So, how do you think the game has grown from when you started coaching to now? I'm sure it's an overwhelming thing with it always changing, but how have you seen it grow?
Well, I think, it starts with the ability for us to teach at such a higher level. I mean, it is so advanced what we know, whether it comes to hitting technology and pitching technology, and not just technology, but there's so many great teachers in the game, and so many have been willing to learn. And every year we listen to speakers who have this information. You're like, wow, it blows you away. And, at my age, you spend a lot of time feeling really overwhelmed with all of it. Like, wow, there's so much. And I mean, we didn't have radar guns, and we didn't have flight scope and exit velocity. And I mean, we had like 4 bats. They were aluminum. We'd have 4 helmets. We get bases loaded, and then, we'd have to make sure we get a helmet on the next hitter. And, we didn't have fans. And now we play in front of season ticket holders and giant stadiums. And it's grown in every possible way. And it is the greatest game. I believe we rival any women's sport when it comes to viewership, when it comes to interest, and really it's a fan favorite. And in Ann Arbor, it's a fan favorite, as you know. We are without a doubt one of the highlights in Ann Arbor, and it's a lot to do with the continuity of the program, the success of the program, and the success of the program has everything to do with my staff. So, but it's grown leaps and bounds. Even in the last 5 years, I see us going to new heights, new levels, selling out Oklahoma City. Why didn't they build 20,000 seats like they have at Ameritrade? Ameritrade's not full. They're 20,000 seats, but they're not packed. And we have 10,000 people, and people can't get tickets to the Women's College World Series. So why don't we build 20,000 seats? And I guarantee we'd fill it.
Totally. I agree too. I love that you shared from the beginning when it was just simple. You had a couple bats, you were in a couple helmets, and you just kind of played. Do you kind of miss the simplicity of all of it though? Because I feel like the best softball that's played is when it's simple. Like it's just a game, right? But I think with technology, sometimes that heightens anxiety and around, okay, stats and, what's my velocity? What's my speed of my barrel through the zone? Like there's just so much that, like, how are you able to keep it simple at the same time?
Well, I don't know that I always have. I think I, along with anybody else, have gotten caught up in some of this, the technology. I mean, the kids come to us, they're ingrained with Rapsodos and flight scopes and exit velocities and their training, and they all have their own hitting coaches or their own pitching coaches. And that it doesn't keep anything simple, because if I mean, my verbiage and language, as you know, is going to be different than yours. We might be teaching the exact same thing, but we don't teach it exactly the same. And how we go about our business. So it is harder to keep simple because it is not as simple as it used to be. Used to be we hit the ball hard and we could tell if it was hit hard, if it was a line drive and got through the 56 hole or went over the fence and it's a pop up. I'm like, you didn't hit it hard. I mean, sometimes you go back to that. Like, do you feel like you're hitting it hard? No, good, because you're not. It's easy.
Right.
I got a couple years ago. I became a big Joe Madden fan back when the Cubs made their big run, and watching him, I like his style, and started read The Cubs Way, which is fabulous. I don't know if you've ever read it, but and they were going to be in Detroit, so I got a hold of course, know people, and I said, I really want a field pass, but I'll be transparent. I want to meet Joe Madden. They didn't just make it happen. I go walking down on that field, took a couple of our big donors and my assistant, Bonnie, and I had my Cubs Way book, and I sat in the dugout with him for a good 40 minutes. And he talked to me like I was every bit his colleague. I mean, he didn't talk down to me. He was talking all sorts of things. And then he says, come on, let's go up to the cage. And I got to walk on the field during batting practice, which nobody ever gets to go, Big Bertha, and sit there and get to watch how they had retooled Chris Bryant's swing. And I said, wow, it looks a lot like a drill that we do. Oh, we do the same drill, he says. And we go on. And he started talking about the technology aspect and how great it is. He says, but I've learned you've got to just put everything in. It's got a place. But the most important thing you do, you're in the people business and you're dealing with people and trying to mesh all of that. And I think those are the coaches who are probably the most brilliant, who really can understand how to continue to coach with their great feel and their empathy and their knowledge, but add what matters to each kid. And maybe to some kids, their exit velos are something you really focus on, but maybe to some it isn't. Those are the brilliant coaches.
How cool is that experience? Oh my gosh. Chris Bryant is like dream swing. Like whenever I, try to talk to an athlete through something, I'm like, hey, go watch Chris Bryant. Go watch his load. Go watch his hands. Watch how much he's in his legs. Like, I love Chris Bryant. And he's also very attractive in my eyes too. So even better. But that is just so neat. And it's so cool to be able to see, the elite of the elite in MLB, which obviously are getting paid astronomical amount of money to do what they do. It's like they're in the people business, like that's in the back of mind the entire time. Like, yeah, like here's this new tool, great, let's see if it works. If it doesn't, all right, let's move to the next one. I think that's just really neat to be able to see and hear that story. And I'm sure you were just soaking it in like a sponge. But how flipping cool is that? That's awesome.
It definitely resonated with me. And I've always felt that I'm more of a people person than I'm a tactician. And to me, I played in a simple time. We played with the white ball. I mean, I started with a wooden bat. My colleague was Mary Nutter. I played ball with Mary Nutter. Wow. And she was our number 2 hitter. I always tease her. She was a lefty. I said, you were the world's slowest slapper. And but she used a wooden bat well until we started getting aluminum bats. And I used a 30-ounce Dudley bat. Still have it in my garage. I bring it out every now and then. My kids just swing it and they just look at me like I have 4 heads. It was we didn't wear helmets. The ball got soft by about third or fourth inning, and the games were 1-0 or maybe 2-1. And every now and then, I'd get a big hit and be 4-1. But the ERA back then were 0.3, 0.4. I mean, pitching was, and it was beyond dominant. So I think that's where the game has changed as well. I mean, we made it more offensive. We moved the mound back. We changed the ball. We changed the bats. Changed the technology, and now look what we have. It's nuts. You hit a ball hard, it goes over the fence.
Yeah.
I mean that's nuts. So I think
it is crazy.
Easily move the fences to 230 in the college game, and that would make it a home run would be more legit, and we'd have a lot more extra base hits. And I think we're ready for it. The problem is it'd be pretty hard to change a bunch of stadiums.
Oh, I know.
I think that our college game would thrive with that, personally.
Yeah, it would just be another challenge.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, man.
the game would be different. Look, it's how they play international ball, so it's a little bit different game.
Yeah. But then do you add the crow hop? Like there's like
I
all
think we
these
already,
other things.
I think we already added
Slightly.
it. I've
Yeah.
got enough core hopping to think it's legal to a
Mhm.
degree. We don't call it anyway.
Right. Yeah, the international game is wild, but I think there is a lot we can learn from it as well. But then you have trouble, with the Northwesterns, like if they back up any further, they're in a building. Like
We
we're
just got building, no problem.
yeah, just move the building back.
Move
Easy.
back in baseball's field. So we're already hitting it into baseball's field. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
those definite issues. I recognize that. So, I'm not going to be in that committee.
No, we can just talk about it, which I
Yeah.
love. Now with all the success that you've had, I mean, I was there on the game where you broke the record or tied the record for the most wins in NCAA. And you said this one thing that really stuck out to me. You're like, I didn't do a thing. It was my players. It was my staff. Like those are the people who got the stat to be where it is. Which your humility is amazing. Like it's one of those things where, we can always get better at it, but I just am in awe of how you carry yourself. But how are you able to separate yourself from your players and like when they have success? Like I think because I see a lot of coaches, frankly, in travel ball or wherever I am now, it's like coaches are claiming that's my kid, that's my athlete, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like you don't do that. How are you able to balance that?
Well, I've to quote Sue Enquist, we're just servants of the program. When you're the head coach, I'm here to serve everybody in the program, really. And they're not here to serve me. I think that of administrations, athletic directors, assistant athletic directors, administrators, they're here to serve the coaches so the coaches can serve the players. And my job is you come to play at Michigan, and our number one priority is to make Michigan great. And that's why we brought you. And I tell people that in the process, you are part of that. Be a part of that. And doesn't mean they always understand what that looks like and feels like. But and then the other thing we're here to do is help you achieve success, which is help you go from here to there, to there, to there in all aspects, not just in softball. But I mean, we help serve every aspect of your life, whether it's learning how to go to college and learning how to navigate the rigors of a great academic institution and how to keep you on track to get your degree, because you're not leaving Michigan without a degree. I'll chase you around the world to make sure you finish that degree. And, that's what we're here for. We're here to serve the students. And, we have a big job. We're all charged with whether we do well or when we don't do well. And we take that pretty seriously. But I think, in 2005, I remember vividly, like, man, I just got to stay out of these guys' way. They are on a mission. They were on a mission. It was a player-driven team, and I've had several player-driven teams, because when the coach has to drive the team, that means I own the success. Now, I take success seriously. I never walk into that, I don't want to win that game. And after the game, and we don't, I'm like, what could we have done better? And certainly, what could we have done better with our players? But you really want a team that owns their own success. As a player, as a hitter, you want to be better. I want you to be better. I want every player to be better. But unless you want to be better and understand what it takes and are willing to do what it takes, versus make an excuse, well, I didn't have time to train, I had a test, or I just, there's always reasons why you can't do something. And empowering those kids is helping them take their success and of our team success. But the best teams I've ever had, I talk at seminars and I say, look in the dugout and you see those kids who aren't necessarily playing in the game, but they have a role. Maybe they're the bullpen catcher. Maybe they're the third pitcher in line of the day. Maybe they are a pinch runner, or maybe they're a practice player. And they're in that dugout going, they're playing every pitch. They play every pitch. It's not just about cheering and doing funny things with props. It's about playing every pitch, like the coaches. We play every pitch. And those are the best teams. That has been, that's what we're looking to create. That's the culture, as you talk about. But I'm here to help you be great. When you attain it, I'm happy for you. You put in the work and you owned it. And hopefully I can help teach you some of that. I'm here to help educate. I feel like I'm still number one. I majored in education and I'm an educator.
Mhm. Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm sure you've called some athletes off the bench that were locked in every single pitch, and they come in and they get the job done. And there's nothing like seeing a kid who maybe didn't get the start, but was so mentally and physically prepared for their moment, and they shined there.
Well, those are the kids, I look at some of the kids who worked their way through the system, and they didn't start as freshmen. Maybe they got to pinch hit or got to pinch run. That's normal. I don't care who you are. You come in, everybody comes in and they're on a different path, and their journey is going to be different. And some kids come in and light up the world, and are all American their freshman year. And some kids have to work their way into it. And the kids that keep their nose down and keep striving for what they want are the kids who will make that, who can really achieve the success they're looking for, which is to get to play. Everybody wants to play. I want to win. My job is to put every team we have, every time we walk on the field, to put us in the best position to win the game. And that might be even like, well, we're going to decide how to do the pitching rotation because how are we going to win the tournament? Or how are we going to, it's not just a one game thing always, in myopic fashion. But, I've seen kids go from pinch rolls to starting, and our number 4 hitter in the 2015 National Championship Series, Kelsey Susala, she didn't start her freshman year or her sophomore year. She had pinch rolls, and she was a hitter. I'm like, this kid's going to be a hitter. You've got to get bigger. You've got to get stronger. You've got to get your barrel to the front. I mean, she was just lagging slightly. Time to impact was just not there. In her junior year, she figured it out. And she had worked really hard, and she had lifted hard all summer, and she had put on muscle. And more than anything, she didn't complain and keep blaming others for her lack of playing time or her lack of success. She didn't. She might have gotten a moment here and there, but in general, that kid just stayed out, kept working, and keeping her goal in front of her. Because people look at the obstacles too often. What all this is in my way. And when they start saying, when you hear kids say, well, the coach is in my way, I'm going to tell you, they are letting the coach own their success. And if I own your success, you're not going to have it. Not the way. What's in your way? Take a look and go after it.
That's so well said. I mean, I deal with a lot of youth players that grow up to play at universities like yours. And I think a big thing that's holding them back is that they're so worried about what that at bat's going to mean for the coach. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to sit the bench now? Or, oh my gosh, am I going to get an earful on the car ride home with dad? And they worry so much about other people that they're lacking that foundational piece of owning your game.
Yeah.
Like if you own your game, you have a bad game, then you're not going to be afraid to talk about it. Maybe you need to eat before we start talking about it, which Sue Enquist talked about on her episode. Like, hey, like maybe just like your athlete's hungry and tired. Probably not the conversation to have about the game, but the athletes that kind of own it and they're like, okay, dad, what'd you see with my barrel? Like, was I late? Like, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. Those are the athletes that find the most growth, I feel like, because they've owned it and they're not shamed by it.
Your success, you're in podcasting now, you're in the softball industry, and your success is on you. It's not on anybody else. And it's no different when you're a college athlete. Your success is on you. Nobody else owns it. You have a ton of assistants. You have nutritionists, strength and conditioning, academic support, a ton of coaches who have a lot of knowledge. And how much do you really help yourself? Help yourself.
And we can't get anywhere we want to get without help, which is another aspect of it all, obviously. But that's so true. Like, your success is on you. And those people around you, they might blame themselves for not getting you to where you wanted to be. But all in all, it's on you. Always. Period. End of story. Dang.
It is. When you accept that, you'll keep you keep the excuses out of the way. I hear a lot of excuses from kids, and they're young, they're immature, and they don't have the experience that I have. And I'm here to help you find that. But they just don't understand this aspect. And I think that is where, as you work with the parents of the kids that you work with, it can be helpful for them to realize how that can really get in a kid's way. And when parents put these high expectations on them, and all the parents of the freshmen are like, oh, you're going to go in there, you're going to start, you're going to be an impact, everybody's going to know your name. And it's an unrealistic expectation that kids, they don't want to let their parents down. First and foremost, their loyalty is to their parents. I would never question that, but it can get in their way big time. And I've seen many a kid who took years to develop because that was in their way the whole time. The comparison factor, why are other kids getting a chance? And they're worried about things that they don't control. They don't control if I don't like your at bat and decide to hit somebody else. And I mean, I was playing golf the other day thinking about, wow, I'm really focused on the outcome here. I am really focused on the outcome. I got to get off the outcome and get back to my process. And, it happens to everybody, but, that's, I'd like the parents to get more on board with what are we trying to accomplish? Is my daughter helping? And really the biggest thing is when kids come and say, I want to play more, the best answer is, well, then play better, improve more. These are the, I always tell a kid, if they have the guts to come in, I say, you need to do that. You need to be fielding more than 60% of the balls at practice. We're trying to field 97% as a team. So 97% of the balls, or 95% if you're a middle infield. This is what we're striving for. Those are things that will help get you on the field. And try to give them some hard data. There's a lot of it is, well, I just feel like feelings are not fact. Feelings are, nobody's in charge of your feelings but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're talking about young people who have not been through, they've all come from being the most successful in their high schools and in their programs, because that's why they're at our place, or that's why they're at, your place. That's why they get to go to college. And then they get to Harvard. And that's really what defines you, in my mind. How you handle adversity is really the defining mark of you as a person. Not how you handle when it's sunny and 70, as they say. It's when it's not going your way. How do you handle it? And when you fall down, do you keep getting back up? Or do you just lay there and, feel bad for yourself or blame somebody else? I've seen both.
Yeah.
I can are successful.
I think we definitely needed to talk about that because, most athletes that are going to play at a high level school, they're hitting 600, like 650 in their high school, right? And that's just what it is. But you're not going to do that when you're challenged in this way with like a faster game, faster pitching, hitters that are hitting it harder. Like it's just not going to work that way. And once we learn how to let go and get back to like, what is it that and this is where I do talk a lot about feel with my hitters. Like, what did it feel like to truly drive that ball to opposite field and hit that gap? So, and obviously emotions aside.
Question. I like to give kids drills that help them feel what they're doing, as opposed to tell them how to do it, which I'm really famous for. But here's your drill. What do you feel? Oh, I feel that. Okay, what do you feel? I'm talking about when kids come in, they say, oh, I just feel like you like Ashley better than you like me. And I just feel like, I never get a chance, and like,
that feel.
Those aren't facts. Feelings, so that's refer to that.
Yeah, that's like negative thoughts. Like the ones that creep into your mind, like I suck at softball. Well, obviously that's not true. That's a myth that your mind is making up. But no, I totally get that. And I think one thing that Scott Burkhart, who
is famous.
I met him on the, he came on my podcast once, and because of how great it went, he was like, I need my own podcast now. I got so much to say. But I thought something that he did a great job of with me, and I'm sure he did it with my two other sisters who were playing college sports, was he let go. Like as soon as we went to school, my coaches had me. And as soon as I would come home from school, it would be, let's talk about what you're learning, right? And let's do those things in the winter, in off season, to try to make sure that you're doing the stuff that you're supposed to be doing. But he also was huge on just like making the most of every opportunity you have. Make the most of every opportunity you're given. And with that as my mindset, I didn't walk in and was a starter, but I was a starter, once season started in spring. And I truly believe that was because my dad wasn't talking to me about like, ooh, do you think you're going to start this week? Ooh, how are you hitting this week? No, he just let me be. And when I had things to ask or talk about, I'd call him, but he let me take ownership of it all. And I think that's how I was able to grow, is like, it didn't have dad chirping in my ear over and over, like, hey, how's this going? How's this going? Even though I'm sure he was like dying to know what we were doing in practice, but he let me lead this. And I think that's how I was able to thrive, and how my other sisters are able to thrive in their own game. But shout out Scott Burkhart for teaching us that one.
Well, I mean, I got a chance to coach your sister. I didn't really have to coach her. It was so easy to just, if you have a conversation with and give a suggestion. I suggest you try this. Okay. But I mean, I can tell when a kid's been parented really well. And I give a shout out to Scott Burkhart too, because clearly that is really the best advice you can give families is don't talk to them about their softball. Let them deal with their softball. It's now their own experience. And I know you've been a big part of it, but now you're their big support system. And being a fan means you support whatever goes on and understand what we're trying to do at this level. And it's a journey, it's an experience. And, how your influence, the parents' influence on their kids is the single defining factor for how they're going to handle their college experience.
Mm-hmm. Like, your parents are your world. You care about what they think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How would you advise then parents to help prime their kids so they're ready for you a little bit more? Because I obviously can speak on my own experience, but I would love to hear how you would hope parents would show their athletes how to own their game prior to getting to school.
Well, I mean, those are conversations that, and I think I alluded to earlier, we try to have in the recruiting process. And especially when they get to campus, we typically meet with the freshman parents because they've never been through the system. And now every parent has met with us when they've come to campus, because we've been doing it for a while. Oh, I don't know why that comes on my iPad. And I talk about the things that are difficult for them, and how they have to own their success as let the kids own their academic success, and that we're here to help them. We don't want them to fall in holes. I advise parents, the one time I want you to call me, I want you to contact me if you ever have any concerns about their health or their well-being. If you feel a kid is abnormally having struggles, we want you to call us. But when it comes to their softball, I'm going to treat those kids like an adult, and I'm going to deal with them one-on-one. And I've had a number of parents who, of course, want to call and talk about it. And because she's intimidated, doesn't want to talk to you. She needs to. It's part of the journey. It's part of her growing experience to be able to come in and discuss with the adult the hard questions. And that's where you can be supportive of them. And that's how you support the program. Until we try to have those conversations. But I definitely can say that some parents are great at it. And some parents, definitely, it's harder for them to let go or to see. Because out of a freshman class, you're going to have a number of them who have the journey isn't easy. Some of them are going to have journeys that appear easy. But in general, you're going to have an assortment of kids. And I've had kids who were the most highly recruited who fared the worst their first year or two. Now I've had kids who maybe you recruited to walk on or so forth, and they flourished. So some of it's just keeping the expectation to the simple things, as I've read along the way. Are you a good teammate? Are you working as hard as you can? And does the coach ever tell you can work harder? And if she does, are you trying to meet those standards? And making sure that your process with them is, whether you play or not, we love you and you've worked really hard for this. And now you're going to learn to work at a new level. That's what college is. College isn't high school, not in athletics and not in academics. It's supposed to be harder. And learning as they get better at that, and to be proud of your kid when she overcomes the hard. And even if it's, nobody aspires to be a pinch runner, but that pinch runner, when we put him in the game, is the most important player in the game, sometimes of the whole game. And if they score the winning run, I mean, they persevered through what was hard because they didn't want to be a pinch runner to begin with. Mm-hmm. But I told her this in recent years. I said, if you never embrace the role you have, you're a pinch runner right now. I know you want to start. I know you didn't come here to be the pinch runner. But if you don't embrace it and be the best you can be, why do you think you're ever going to get promoted to starter? And that's the same in the corporate world. If you don't embrace that you're a middle manager because you want to run the company, you won't be good at it. You won't be nearly as good at it as if once you embrace it. And I'm like, I'm going to be the best middle manager there is. I'm going to be the best role player I can. That's how you get into the next level. That's the only way. That is the most valuable life lesson that we can teach. We teach that in athletics every day. Those who learn it are the ones who excel.
I love how the phone chimed right when we were hitting that beat. Like that was, wow. We could end this here, but of course we can't, because when I asked you to come on, I asked you what you wanted to talk about, and you're like, Title IX. I need to talk about this. And I'm going to let you kind of lead this, because I mean, you've seen it from the beginning and I frankly haven't. So tell the audience a bit about Title IX, why you're fired up about it. And we'll dive into some more things here in a bit.
Well, I mean, I learned a few years ago that Title IX is, it was an educational amendment. It passed in 1972. And just like anybody, who the heck pays attention to that stuff when you're anybody really? Most of society doesn't pay attention to what Congress is doing, especially these days. What it was a 37-word amendment that had nothing to do with athletics. There's not one word of it. It just talks about there will be no discrimination in any federally funded institution. And the purpose was education. It was to increase women in particular in education, to give more opportunities to be faculty members, to be students. I mean, back in the 50s and 60s, 3 or 4 or 5 women would attend law school. Nowadays, 50% of law classes are female. And you can go across the board with how it has increased and improved women in society. And of course, at the college level, 20%, not even, were women attending colleges. When I grew up in the 60s. I was a, teeny bopper. Well, 70s, I was teeny bopper. Women didn't tend to go to college. When they did, we majored in nursing and we majored in education. You didn't see people in the STEM. You didn't see engineers and lawyers and doctors. And again, so this purpose of this educational amendment was to improve that lot. Because if you weren't showing equal numbers or better numbers, you could lose. The penalty for not complying was losing your federal financial assistance, which every state school relies on heavily. So as it turns out, though, it had the most significant impact in athletics for all levels, secondary education, collegiate levels of all levels. And it became one of the most hot topics and contested back in the 70s and the early 80s. As with any other social, it was largely a social justice impact. And of course, those have great upheaval, social, political discourse as you go through the upheaval process. And but it was allowing to have the same opportunities for the girls as we have for the boys. And I alluded earlier, I did not play high school sports. We didn't have them. I didn't play high school softball. We didn't have it. My senior year, and I was playing women's summer ball. So my senior year, we had added the Michigan High School Athletic Association girls basketball tournament. So basketball became a varsity sport in the state of Michigan. We had a varsity team. I had a uniform. I bought my first pair of Adidas Superstars. We had buses. We had cheerleaders. Played at full schedule. It was a dream come true. When they added it and they put basketball season for girls in the fall. And it was a direct quote, whether I read it in the newspaper or wherever I read it, that we were going to keep the girls in the fall so they stay out of the way of the boys. Because the boys basketball was when's basketball season during the normal basketball season. Now, I was 17 years old. I didn't care when we played. I was so excited to get to be a varsity athlete, just like my brothers had been. And so that was how the evolution began. And I grew up right with it, and then I went to college and none of us had a scholarship. We were all walk-ons, technically. There are a few scholarships out there and some of the JCs were giving them. And, and my mom said, how are you going to go to college? Like 6 kids, right? We don't have any money. I said, oh, don't worry. It'll work out. Well, I'll get a scholarship. Of course, there weren't any. So I worked in college. My first year, I had a job. I had financial aid and I lived at home because I rode my bike to school. It was a mile and a half away. And that was all my teammates. And we were just happy to get to play. We had a lot of opportunities to be in these sports that were not considered anything. There was men's sports, and then there were the women's. You can't see my other hand because it's out of the picture, but we got to play. And it was very reluctant on all the athletic departments, whether it was in high schools and in college level, to spend money on the women. And our own athletic director at Michigan lobbied Congress against the passage of Title IX. They wanted to exempt football. He said, if we start spending all this money on women, it's going to ruin college football. How about that? That seems like it's going fine. So, there's a lot of ups and downs as you go through those kind of changes. And a lot of women started fighting, coaches or administrators fighting for, because athletic departments were reluctantly giving us very small crumbs and saying, be happy, you're lucky you get to play. I mean, and Michigan State was a great example. I went to high school with Magic Johnson. He was a sophomore, I was a senior. So I was at Michigan State as a walk-on, having my coach drive me around the, country to our basketball games. And Magic Johnson came in as a freshman and was flying around charter planes and got a full scholarship and, all that stuff. And, I remember distinctly, we were playing at Mackey Arena at Purdue, and we played, so our game was at 7:00 at night. We didn't certainly draw crowds. And then our coaches had to drive us home in a snowstorm, and my car ended up in a 20-foot ditch. Just missed a pole that, I don't know, probably could have caused some damage.
Holy smokes.
This is how it went back then. But so eventually there was a lot of lawsuits filed as more and more people realized that this is the law. And at Michigan State, we met a very famous, one of the most famous Title IX lawyers, probably the most famous, Jean King, lived in Ann Arbor. And we drove down, a couple of us on the basketball team, and met with her. And she basically, she was a lawyer. So the question she asked, she doesn't know anything about basketball. But what she did know was the law. And she said, you guys, the law only works if you use it. And you think about a speed limit sign. I've said Title IX is the speed limit sign. And of course, we always compare on South State Street by our field is, what's the speed limit? 25, 30. And if you go faster than that, there is a consequence if it's enforced. And if it's not enforced, you can go as fast as you want. If you take the speed limit sign down, you can go as fast as you want. So keeping Title IX intact and enforcing it, because right now, as we've moved through and we've seen the growth that you've seen, the only reason we have it, the reason you got to go to college and be on a scholarship and play, and now look at the stadium they built at Purdue, and it's only because of the law. That was the seed that started it all. And that law created every opportunity that's there today. And the good news is, I heard this quote recently, and I was like, I guess I'll agree with that. So many young women don't have a clue how it was because it's been so good for so long. That all the opportunities available today. So that's the good news. It means it's worked. Unfortunately, though, what we have seen in the last, as we've gotten through this huge hump, and we still see so many disparities, because as good as they treat the women, they treat a lot of the men better. It was really exposed in the 2021 women's basketball tournament when they threw out the yoga mats and a couple dumbbells.
Yep.
They built an enormous weight room for the boys, and so we're going to build one for the women in a couple weeks. That kind of stuff. And at the College World Series that same year, it became evident that we were compressing the exact same number of games into 6 days, playing double headers, playing until 2 and 3 in the morning, and then turning around playing again the next day. And they said, well, it's money. And so, but it was exposed, and it's clearly, it doesn't make sense. I mean, what's the difference is the NCAA putting their money into the women, because they weren't willing to pay the difference. And the women's golf tournament, the NCAA championships for women, still has a disparate number of teams. There are more men teams that go to the championships than women's, approximately 10 to 15 team difference. So that many women have less opportunity to be in championships. And the NCAA says, well, it's a budget issue.
Sure.
$1 million business. What's the problem? They have money for whatever is important, as everybody does. So we're still battling some of these concerns. They're rampant on college campuses. I get calls all the time because I have a lot of experience in Title IX, speaking on Title IX, and helping people understand where their rights are. And I'll have a high school coach call me. I've had college coaches call me. They're doing this for baseball and they're telling us they can't do it for softball. They can do it in a few years. I mean, you go across the country and look at many of the college baseball stadiums and their softball fields, and there can be a lot of disparity there. You look at coaching salaries across the board, men are paid higher than women in all sports. And they say, well, there's always a moving shell game. Market value, that's why men make more. Well, why is their market higher? What's the difference? Why are they investing more money in the men's sports, whether it's at the national championship level for baseball? They spend $10 million more on the college baseball tournament than they do on the college softball tournament. Our viewership is higher. Mm-hmm. The same money, they don't invest on the front end. You have to on the front end, and they would reap the rewards. We're not getting the college or the TV commercials. Well, why? Where's the committee that does that? They're all working for other sports, and they're all the men's sports. So we've come far. But as a friend said, but don't settle because the crumbs are bigger. Mm-hmm. It's never been better time to be. So we're not, we're just asking for still the same opportunities and the same interest, because we could be great money makers in many of our sports. Women's basketball, volleyball, softball, in particular, are fan favorites. They're TV favorites. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Make the money. Invest in these women. I mean, the opportunity to come through with numbers of scholarships. There's still more men on college scholarships than there are women. People point to revenue. What football's revenue? Well, at this day and age, there's a lot of revenue out there to be had. So there's still a lot to do. There's still, people have to be vigilant so we don't go backwards. And if you look around the country today, there's a lot of things going backwards. I think we have to pay attention.
Totally. Now, what hits me there is when I interviewed my dad, he was telling me how we as a family started getting into softball. And this was when, just the Women's College World Series and the Olympics were on TV. That's it. Now, obviously, everyone's come a long way with media, but that was the first time my dad had seen softball. And he's just like, holy smokes, like these women are so strong and powerful. And this is crazy, and he had never seen that before. And his interest is probably what led into me going, can we keep watching this? Like, I know it's 11 p.m., but like, can we keep watching this game? Caitlin Lowe's on TV. I love her. But like, he showed interest in it. So like, and now my husband's dad is super into watching collegiate volleyball. Like, he loves it. It's like one of his favorite things ever. I'm like, nobody asked them to start watching. They just happened to come across it, and now they're obsessed. So clearly we have the eyes, but it's a matter of what you were saying is like, well, then we need to invest in what people are watching. But people keep saying, oh, well, the men are, they're way more fun to watch. Well, that's not what the numbers are showing. So
yeah,
I
there's
agree.
a lot of upon women's athletics, and really they shouldn't have to stumble upon it, because the is there. They told me when I was a kid, my mom told me, honey, girls don't play sports. And I thought, wow. I mean, I was like, why? I wanted to be an athlete. I just wanted to be on a team. And they used to say that girls aren't interested. In 1972, pre-72, 1 in 27 girls played high school sports. Today, 1 in every 2 plays high school sports. It's because of the law, because of the opportunities there. The opportunities there, people are taking it. And what it has done for women, I mean, look how we're improving in society. You have more, 80% of CEOs, female CEOs have a sports background. Mm-hmm. I mean, creating leadership opportunities, creating more opportunities. And we all know that we're still behind in the leadership aspect of running the world, but it's improving.
It totally is. And you and I both know, and this is probably why we're still in it, is the game is teaching you so many things that like the real world, quote unquote, after college is going to teach you. And like, even if you just play high school, like if you're challenged in high school and you are competing for a state championship, like if you compete for something bigger than yourself, you are learning the qualities that you're going to need later in life. And that, I mean, that's a little bit away, but it's so true. It's crazy how much they're so similar. Like
Absolutely.
the greatest coaches and the greatest CEOs have the very similar backgrounds on, going through sports, but going through challenges, male or female. And now that we're getting more opportunities, it's grown.
You see that's why there's such a crossover between the corporate world and athletics. And you see so many crossovers because leadership is leadership. Coaching is leadership.
Yeah. Who are the leaders that, whether they're coaches or not, that you are learning from or have learned a lot from? Obviously, Ann and Kay, but who are some big ones for you?
Well, when I was first getting into college coaching, and of course, I stumbled upon an opportunity to go to Indiana University, and my first college mentor was Gail Blevins, who was one of the most iconic and greatest, not just minds in the game, but she's a great educator. And she'd become a lifelong friend, a lifelong mentor. And I spent my first probably close to 10 years. And then we got into a great war because she went to Iowa and we had Michigan, Iowa. We were such a good rivalry. But I swear I wore a bracelet that said WWGD. What would Gail do? A lot. And I finally had to realize, I'm nothing like Gail and I can't be Gail, but I aspired to be Gail. She is probably my single greatest role model that way. Margot Yonker from Central Michigan. And in the 80s, I was just getting started, and Central Michigan went to the World Series, and I think in 87. And she always had great teams, and they just used to kick our can around the state. We would lose to them you wouldn't believe. She set the tone, and I'm the biggest compliment. I always wanted my team to be like Margot's. They were fast, they were athletic, they were really good and well coached, disciplined. And then one day she complimented me and said something how good my team was, and I was like, that's awesome. That's all I ever wanted. Margie Wright. Margie Wright's. I watched her compete. I competed against her. She's a little bit older than me. Don't tell her I said that. And she played for a team out of Moline, Illinois. And I played, of course, in Lansing Laurels. And we went to these tournaments. We played them. And she pitched and played shortstop. And greatest competitor I ever watched. And I would just, after our games, if we weren't, I'd go to the field they were playing on just to watch her. She was my idol. I wanted to be her. She was such a great softball player and such a competitor. And so, that's just to name a few, I've been really fortunate that I got to end up playing. I played 35 and overball with Margie, and, played against her for years. And, when the first time that the college record was set by Margie Wright, and then when we broke it, I was like, wow, it's Margie Wright. And, who the first person to call me was? Margie Wright. Yep. It's awesome. So just great role models and mentors. And I never will ever lose sight of that's who we all are. When you get into leadership positions, your duty, you serve a lot of people, but you owe it to the game, and I go to quote Sue Enquist. She has the best quotes. Take care of the game will take care of you. But we're here to serve the game and help make it better. And, I speak out because I feel like at this stage of my life, my platform is pretty secure, and I need to, my job's to help make the game better.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned all female role models, because I think we're finally at an age where there's so many. Like, I remember growing up, and I think of male figures a lot. Maybe that was because my dad went through college basketball and we were watching a lot of men's sports growing up. But there are so many female mentors out there that so many of if athletes actually, and this is where parents I think can help their athletes and coaches, like get them around those people. Mm-hmm. Get them to go to these pro games and watch these players. Get them to go, a coach from a college is coming to talk, go. Get them in front of them. This is why you're on my podcast. Like, I need people to see what's out there, because I know you're an incredible role model, not only for me, but just so many athletes out there that are striving to, be a little bit like you. And I know you don't try to do that, but I feel like when women are living into their potential, that's how they become a role model. And that's our job to continue to do that. So thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I need to ask you a quick question about your golf game, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My husband goes, I need to know what Hutch's best golf round was.
Oh man. Well, I played this summer. I had established a handicap, and it's been at around 10 because I was playing lights out while I was practicing it. And then I went to the club, a couple different really hard golf courses, and I'm like, I should have trained here more. My handicap would definitely be higher. But my best round, I think I shot. I've broken 80 a couple times, and I shoot in the mid 80s. I'm a 85, 87 golfer regularly. I've hit 92 on the really hard courses because I have to tell you, I mean, I can hit with the best of them, but boy, my putting is atrocious. I'm get better at my short game's improved a lot. My whole game's improved. You have to persevere through the hard, and I finally decided I'm going to focus on putting, and I'm taking YouTube lessons right now, and I'm trying to find time to take lessons. I'm actually trying to get in with a pro this week. So like it is kind of a zen for me to go on the course. There's a lot of parallels between golf and in life, because a bad shot doesn't ruin your round. You can always recover, and more than anything, you really have to be locked in and get into your good zen when you're playing a good round. And when I play a good round, I realize I am just focused on one moment at a time, one ball at a time, and just focus on feeling the swing versus trying to score. And I noticed the other day, and I wasn't scoring well, I wasn't putting well, and I was like, I am way focused on the process now, and I'm worrying about my score. At the end of the day, the score, right?
Totally, just like the game.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I love.
That's why I had my husband on the podcast to talk about the similarities of golf and softball, because I think golf is mentally much tougher. Because I mean, you're just consistently, like, if you're not in the present moment, your round's over,
Absolutely.
and then it's so hard. But yeah, I'm trying to get into it. I'll have to bring my husband, who is my own golf pro, to help come up and play with you. I think that'd be so fun.
I invitations wide open. All
right, deal. We'll
awesome.
Find a date. I love it. I know we kind of went away from Title IX for a second, but I want to know what specifically we can do, as parents, coaches, even players, to help make this better. Like, what are things that we specifically can do to help make Title IX actually be what it's supposed to be?
Well, I think more than anything, and people will say, well, look, what are you complaining about? Well, we're not complaining. We're just noticing that as everything continues to evolve into like bigger and better. I mean, look at NILs that are now, kids are making a lot of money, and more men are making a lot of money than women. And we're trying to help. This is a situation that we have. This is the world we live in. We don't want to take away from the men or their opportunities. How can we gain those opportunities? And as anybody, the enforcement of it's key. So being alert, being really on board with the fact that it's not okay that if the boys baseball team has a better everything than the women's softball team, it's just not okay. Whether you're in high school, whatever level you're in, whether they have better pay so they can afford to pay coaches, and the high school can only afford to pay a kid who doesn't have any experience yet because they just don't pay them enough to get somebody. And just opportunity should be equal opportunity. It doesn't always mean the exact same of everything, but it's clear when you've got a really nice baseball field and they just got new turf or they just got new batting cages, and then you're struggling and fighting to get them for softball. Parents can make a lot of noise. Student athletes can make a lot of noise. They're the ones who brought it out to begin with. Just this last year, when it really kind of hit a new, crescendo as far as, wow, things are still not what they should be. And the NCAA turned around and, labeled March Madness for the women. They think they fixed it. But in general, there's a lot of disparity. And we are, your daughters deserve the same as your sons. Period. That's all. Same opportunity. So they be vigilant. Period.
Love it. Any final thoughts on Title IX that maybe you haven't touched on yet that I haven't asked? I'd hate to leave anything on the table.
I think it's important people understand what the law was intended for and why women have been able to grow from 4 people in a law class to 50% of law classes, why all the young women today have the opportunities they have to succeed in college, to go into athletics, to go into the fields of their choice. It was because of a law. And it's no different than many of the other laws we have. But to me, it was the single largest human rights issue since the civil rights bills of the 60s. I mean, that created the opportunity that we have today. But those rights, as we see, are often maligned and not fair. And some of them are moving backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the one thing we need to realize is it can go the other direction.
Yeah.
In one of the presidential administrations, they were like, we don't need Title IX. They were going to rescind it. Like we didn't need it. It would have enabled men's sports to fly through the roof. And they're like, well, nobody's interested in women. And we've had to force the issue. We're still evolving. This was Team 45 at Michigan. Baseball was Team 158. We're a few years behind in evolution. We've actually evolved at a very steep rate.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still a generation away from people recognizing equity. But are we going to be able to attain it, true equity, or are we going to go through this next period of time where we see a lot of pushback for rights of all people that aren't a segment of society? I'm I'm concerned way beyond the rights for you to play sports or your daughter, well beyond that.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is too that we can do more research. Like obviously there's a lifetime of knowledge that we can all look up and learn. But I think a lot of it comes from like our parents too. Like if they find interest in this, the athlete's going to be like, okay, like what is this that you're researching? What is this that you're looking up? Like watch YouTube videos about this together. I loved, they did the entire segment on ESPN about it. Like I think actually that's just a piece of it, but it could be a starter, it could start the fire for you to want to research and learn more about it so that your daughters can have the same things as your sons. And I think parents have huge influence, coaches have huge influence. So any way that we can show interest in it, our kids are gonna be like, what is that?
Well, I think it's incumbent on people like myself, educators, to make sure. I'd like to make sure my team, we have a discussion every year regarding Title IX, so they understand it. And we watched a video. Flow Softball did a big video that I was in the center of, and it was regarding my Title IX background. And I made them watch it. I said, this isn't about me, you guys, but this is a history lesson. And so many of them were like, I didn't know any of that. They don't know so much. And and then I used to think, how can you not know this? And I realized it's not their fault. Nobody taught them. This isn't taught in schools. It's a blurb. It's a little blurb. A lot of things aren't taught in school. I mean, people don't realize that it was as recent as the early 1970s. Women could not own their own credit card. Did you know that? Early 70s. You couldn't own a credit card. You had to have a male partner, husband, co-sign for it, or however that works.
Yep. And that wasn't that long ago.
Never talked about. I was alive. In fact, my mother had just divorced my father. She needed her own credit card. Right? And women didn't used to be able to vote. That is blurbs you read in a paragraph. People don't really delve into it, and people don't want to hear about that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Certain segments of a population were not allowed to vote. Women were allowed to vote. People that weren't white were not allowed to vote. We had to fight. We had to pass legislation for that to occur. And people haven't lived that. So if you haven't lived it, they're like, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
It's history. History's valuable. I guess when you get older, you like history better because you lived through a lot of it. But I listen to a lot of history.
Yeah. I mean, there's podcasts out there. There's so many like easy ways to learn about this stuff, which I know nothing compared to what you know. So I think that we all can learn more. So such incredible advice.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. I think as far as we've gone for a little while in this chat, but as far as how people, what'd you say?
I want people to get bored with us.
I don't think they are. I really don't. But I think that one, I would love to hear like any resources that you can think of at the top of your head. Obviously, the documentary Hutch, we can all watch, which I watched it and it is amazing. I loved it. To learn a little bit more about Title IX. Any other like immediate resources that come to your brain of what to watch? Maybe that ESPN.
Well, I yes, and it occurs to me that the Michigan softball team should watch the Title IX series this fall together. You know,
Mhm.
They did it. I haven't even finished watching it all, but I think they did a great job. It certainly was on it. That's a major network to cover that.
Mhm.
I think off the top of my head, I can't think of what resources are out there other than those who are really interested could certainly Google it and learn about so many of the cases that made a difference in our society.
Mhm.
One of the very first case, but if it was not one of the very first cases was here in Ann Arbor by Gene King, and it was because the tennis team at Huron High School, they only had a men's team, and they had a woman, a girl, high school girl who wanted to play. She had to play on the men's team because they didn't have a women's team, and that became one of the first ever Title IX landmark cases. And people started looking at this. Well, the women don't have anywhere to play, so really the interest is in continuing to educate, because I'll just say it again, history can repeat itself. We can go the other direction with lack of interest, with lack of paying attention to what's going on in the world. And there's a lot going on in the world. People need to pay attention.
Totally. I will put all those links in the show notes for people to go and watch. But lastly, are you up for some rapid fire questions?
Well, I'm not very, but I'll do my best. I don't know the
It's okay. I told my dad it was rapid fire and he did like a 5-minute answer on one of them, but I had to remind him it was rapid fire. But just thank you before I even ask these. This has been such an enlightening conversation. I've learned so much from you. I know there's so much more I'm going to learn from you now that I'm, part of Michigan Tribe now.
Sure.
I'm in. I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it proudly with the Block M.
Love it.
I love being here, and I just want to thank you so much for everything you've done for our family, and obviously being on this podcast too.
Well, having the Burkharts come in board was what a great idea that was. So we're lucky, y'all, and you're all in the forever go blue.
I love it. Go blue. All right. I need to know, first question, what's your favorite sports movie?
My favorite sports movie is what's the name of it? Used to watch. Remember the Titans? We used to watch it on the. Remember the Titans?
Great one. Great one. What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
I'm in coffee and watermelon.
'Tis the season for watermelon.
Oh, I love watermelon.
I love it. All right, this one's a little deeper. What's a hard lesson that the game continues to teach you over and over and over?
That no matter what you do, you can't control everything. As a coach, I don't feel that I'm a controlling person. There would be a few people that might argue some of that, but you want to control everything. And at some point, I am best when I finally find a way to detach in a game and let it go. Like, I don't control if we win the game. I never did. So it's I'd say you continue to learn it, because I have to learn it pretty much every week. But you have to, just like you tell your athletes, put yourself in the best position, prepare, get yourself, where you need to be. And then, it's a game, and it is a hard game. It's how it kind of all bounces.
Yep. You got to reanalyze yourself every 5 seconds, it feels like, because you think you got it figured out. And then it's like, no, just kidding.
Coaches are pretty hard on themselves. People don't realize one thing I've learned a long time ago, you don't blame anybody else. I'm not blaming. The minute you start blaming your kids for lack of success, you're not a good coach. Ultimately it starts and ends with what we do. And it doesn't mean we didn't do it well. It doesn't mean it doesn't always work. And I tell my kids 80% rule. Whatever we do, we're striving to have 80% of it work, whether it's calling steals, calling bunts, hit and runs, pitch outs. 80% of the time, if we get 80% of it to work, we're going to be in good shape.
They're really good wisdom there.
It didn't work this time. Yep, it doesn't always work. I thought they were going to bunt and they hit it over our head. I get it doesn't always work. I don't get to know the answer ahead of time. I
Yeah.
only give my best shot.
Yeah. And I love that you're also teaching that you're not always right either, because I think that's something that a lot of us can learn too. It's like,
everybody knows I'm not always right. It's pretty evident.
well,
It's
but I think that's an incredible lesson for anybody that, you know, is coaching out there that's like, no, I'm always right. Or even parents like, no, I'm always right. Like, well, what are we teaching our kids? Like, we
there's
we
no
need to
such
let them know that we're not perfect.
there's no such thing. I mean, Romo said it to me one time. She goes, I've learned to be imperfect in a perfect, I want to be perfect. I've learned that I have to be imperfect. And boy, I'll take that imperfect any day,
Heck
There's
yeah.
no perfect. Every now and then you get a perfect game. That's how rare is that?
Totally. I love it. Second to last question. What are you most excited about right now?
I wake up every day and recognize how lucky I am. I'm lucky at my age that I still have such a great life and health and family. And I try to just, keep it, what does make me happy. And summer makes me happy, especially when I get to do what I want to do. I love to play golf and I love to go to the lake. And, I like to see my people and recharge and regroup. And, and I've met so many great, interesting people along the way. Every summer you meet new people, and recruiting takes zillions of turns, and some of it's great and some of it's really tough. So you just try to keep it all in perspective.
Totally. Totally. Before I ask the final question, I need to tell you one more time. This has been an absolute blast. I think one of my just easiest interviews, simply because I just loved how free flowing this was and how honest you were about a lot of things. So thank you for your honesty and for being on.
That's all there is. What you see, good or bad.
Amen to that. Final question. What legacy would you hope to leave on this game?
I get asked that a lot,
Do you?
Yeah,
It's a tough one.
I'm in control of my legacy because I'm never going to control what you think of me, what I do. I want to be good to my people. I want my kids to know I love them, even when I'm mad, and I want to have, been good to Michigan softball. I mean, it's been awfully good to me. The University of Michigan has been my life, and you cannot begin to repay that. But I think the biggest thing is, this is a people business, and I have been so impacted. You always talk about as a coach, you want to impact these kids, and I wanted to be that player, that coach, like my coaches were for me, the player. But really, everybody that along my path, whether you're colleagues like Gail Blevins, whether you're rivals like, so many of my Big Ten colleagues, and all of the support staff that support your program, your strength coach, Jason, who does our field, all these people impact you. And the student athletes have always impacted me. And, I always say once it gets to be the summer and I finally get a chance to get away and relax and go sit on a beach or something. And I'm like, why did I get so upset that when we lost those games in February, and I just derailed the whole team. And, just try to keep it in perspective. What I do isn't the most important thing in the world, but it's really important to the people I do it with. And you all can write my legacy later. I just want to be, hopefully people can look back and say, Hutch loved me and I love Hutch. That's what I hope for. And, not everybody's going to say that.
Well, I could say that. This has been so fun, and you've impacted so many. And I think that just means you're living your legacy, which is why it's hard to talk about. But yeah, you're going to leave an incredible one. You've already left an incredible one, and I'm excited to see what's more to come for Michigan softball.
Me too. I'm very excited. So it'll be coming soon to a stadium.
Let's go. Literally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll see you in Ann Arbor. Thanks for being on.
Okay. Don't forget to look me up for golf.
You bet. Go Blue.
I'll do it.